Welcome, friends. If you're thinking about buying one of these chamfer tools, this video should help you decide if it's the right tool for you. Today, we're going to go over the details of how to change the cutters, the roller, and how to adjust the cut depth. And then we're going to use it and see how big or small a chamfer this can make. Is this tool really worth having? Let's find out.
All right, welcome guys. We've got the Amazon chamfer tool here. I don't know if this is going to do the job that I wanted it to do. I originally wanted to buy one of these because I thought it would be a good tool for beveling steel. So if you're going to butt weld steel together, big thick steel, you want to put a bevel on it and bevel on it so you can get a good root pass. I don't think that's what this tool is going to do for me. Now there may be a more expensive one that might do that, but this is more of a chamfer tool or an edge cleanup tool, which I think I'll still have a use for. But we're going to see how deep it'll actually bevel. Maybe it'll bevel, you know, at least quarter, if not 3/8. We'll see. I don't know. Let's find out. So it's pretty small. I mean, kind of fits in your hand there pretty easily. Now this doesn't spin, so you can put your knuckles against this. So we're going to run this, and then we're going to take it apart. And I'm going to show you up close all the pieces. It's kind of like a router, right? It's kind of like a router for metal. That's what it is. All right. A little 14 millimeter there. Now this is just 14 gauge. This is what I've been working on a couple projects recently, so I just have it laying around. Let's just see. Okay, the vent's right there. All right, everything feels tight. Let's see what it does. I'm not sure which way to run this, if I should run it this way or this way. I'm assuming since it's spinning this direction, I'm going to want to pull it this way. Let's try that out. Okay, I think I'm getting some inconsistency. Hopefully that's coming out in the camera, because my wheel is too far down and it's rolling below the metal. Okay, so let's just shallow this up a bit. So let's back this off. There's a set screw there and there's one right there. We'll just back these off. And let's turn this, well, there's the little hash mark right there and the 0. So let's turn this, you know, let's turn it one full turn. Let's see what that looks like. This is a little piece of 14 gauge I cut up the other day, and you can see that it barely hits the wheel right there. So that might just do it. It looks like if we put it much further, there won't be a lot of chamfering going on because the blade will be underneath this. So we're going to start here at our edge where we stopped. Okay. And there's our chamfered edge. It looks like it came down about 1/3. It beveled it at about 1/3. Okay, so that's a lot sharper looking than just that rugged edge right there. Let's try something thicker. I've got a piece of 1/8, a piece of 3/16, and a piece of 1/4. And we're going to leave this on this kind of lower setting where it's not cutting as much. And let's see what it looks like. And then we'll go ahead and max this out to get the most cut. And we'll look at how that looks on all 3 pieces as well. Okay, here's the 1/8, and you can kind of see it's just barely beveled. Here's the 3/16, and you can see it's just barely beveled as well. But it's a pretty straight bevel. It looks pretty good. And the 1/4, it didn't even touch that edge. So let's drop it down. Okay, there's the 1/8. So it actually beveled most of the edge. And if I'm just doing a little 1/8 thick project, I may not want that. I may want to shallow it up. Okay, but we can do that, right? Now the 3/16 looks pretty good. I bet that's half, right? And then the quarter Looks like it's not quite half, but it's pretty far down there. It's a nice chamfered edge there. I'll take it. Okay, and maybe don't wear your favorite fleece while you're doing this, because look at that. This is ruined. This is never going to come out of here. Fortunately, it's not my favorite fleece. This is my most unfavorite. But let's just see if the mag brush will pull any of this out. Yeah, not really. Tiny little pieces, but I have to throw this one away. Should have been wearing my leather apron. Okay, so I've used this already. You can see some like wear marks here. I've only used it a few times, though, a few little passes just to test it. But let's take it apart because I want you to be able to see inside of it. I wanted to be able to see inside. I couldn't find a video on it, though, of how these cutters come off, how this head comes off, how it adjusts, and that kind of thing. So obviously there's a little adjuster here. It looks like this is probably for airflow. There's small circle there, big circle there. You know, when you slide it, it doesn't really have a detent. So you're just kind of moving it back and forth so it doesn't really stop anywhere. It just kind of hits one side or the other, but that's okay. You know, a little lock there so you can't accidentally turn it on. That's kind of cool. It says, read the Bible there, wear your binoculars, and then there's some earmuffs. It looks like, you know, definitely wear your earmuffs, it's saying, and I could confirm that because it is pretty loud. All right, so as far as coming apart goes, this little Allen wrench is what we use first. And if you want to adjust it, you can adjust the depth by turning this outer part right here in or out. So right now it's fully seated. Okay, so it's fully screwed in that way, fully turned clockwise. And that gives you the most cut right there. So there's the cutter right there. And so if you're cutting something, your metal comes in here, it'll rub against this wheel, and that'll give you your chamfer right there. There's the cutting edge right there. Hopefully that's coming out. And so if we want to shallow this up some, let's say our metal's not quite that thick, or we want a little bit smaller chamfer, we can shorten this cut. And the way we do that is with these two screws right here. And this screw right here will loosen, and this one right here, there's two kind of right beside each other. Now we're not loosening the one on the collar. That one stays in place. So right now I have this adjusted where 0 is right here, and I'm assuming these little graduate numbers here, 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, all the way around to 0.9. This is about 1 millimeter. So if you turn this one full turn, that should lower this 1 millimeter. And I haven't measured it to see if that's accurate because I suspect it's probably not accurate. I'm still going to adjust it and then, you know, test my cut to get the cut I want, and then just leave it wherever it's at. But if we spin it all the way around one full turn and we lock it there, you can see how much shallower it got, okay, as far as the cut goes. And if we keep turning it, that's going to be not any cut at all because the metal can't get between here and this part right here. You can see how far inside the cutter is. So even dialing it out 2 full millimeters is not going to cut anything, according to this, if this is millimeters. I don't know if it is or not. You can unscrew it all the way, and that's what we're going to do to service it. Now you can adjust this collar just by loosening this single hex that's right here along with the numbers, and then you can spin the collar around so that aligns with your tool. Now, does this have to be accurate or not? I don't really care about that. Let's say I want to cut a bit, the biggest chamfer it can cut with this, but then I want to cut a smaller chamfer on a smaller piece of steel. I'm just going to leave that at 0, leave it locked there, and then, you know, dial this back, get the cut I want, and then just remember that number for that thickness of steel or that size chamfer that I want. No big deal. This doesn't give you a big operating range, so don't expect that. All right, well, let's go ahead and take this apart now. We'll go ahead and spin this off. Now here's the cutters. There's a cutter there. You can spin it around. There's a cutter there. All right. Now to take a cutter out, and I've already used this cutter, and you can see the edge right there. It looks pretty good. I don't see any. I made several little cuts on it on different thicknesses of steel, and there might be a little bit of an edge there that looks like it might be tiny bit worn, but it was still cutting just fine. Okay, so these, you know, I haven't turned these over or anything. These cutters are still in good shape. We're going to use this little Torx head here. We'll back the screw out. And this is a tiny screw right here. Woo! That's small. Look at that. We're going to put that in a safe place. And then this cutter should just lift out. Yep. This cutter actually has 2 sides to it. That has an indentation in it where the screw actually seats. And then if you flip it over, there's a flat side and there's no indentation. So it only goes in one way. It'll be very obvious. You have to be able to put your screw in. And the only way to put your screw in is to put this side up. All right. But if you want to flip it over, you can, and use a different side. If one side gets worn out, that's pretty cool. You can see the little notch there that the cutter sits in. We're just going to set the cutter back in there. Now with my big fat fingers, we're going to drop the screw back in here. And hopefully we can get this back together. Okay, and I'm just going to barely put a tweak on this, just a little tiny tweak. Nothing hard, nothing much at all, just enough to just where it stops, and then I'm going to stop. All right, so there's one cutter. There's the other cutter. We could take that off. Okay, now if you have to take this bearing off, if you have to replace this, that's your little nut right there on the top, and you have to take that off with this little spanner right here. Problem is there's not like an arbor lock on this anywhere, but you can take this right here, slide it into here, and that'll hold it in place, and then use your little spanner tool right here to loosen this. Yeah, it popped loose. And then that little nut comes off. Ooh, that's a tiny thing. And then your little bearing will slide right off. Okay, and you can replace that because it came with some extras. And to put it back on, we'll just put the nut on there, screw it down, put a little tiny tweak on it, just enough to seat it. We'll screw that back down to 0. So again, you can calibrate this lock. This piece right here is not stopping this from seating, and I made sure of that. So let me just show you what I'm talking about. You can take this loose right here, and because it's real easy to recalibrate. Okay, and then that just comes apart like that. All right, now you can see how far this runs down. It's still bumping into that right there. Okay, and you can see how big the cut's going to be. Now when we put our collar back on, you can see the collar fits over that, and there's no obstruction right there. So this collar actually fits over that big nut right there. So that's not stopping anything. So we can put that on, slide this back up here, screw that back on, and tighten this down. And you can see our collar still spins freely, even though this is tight. And so we'll go ahead and spin this back around to 0, right on that hash mark. Lock this down. We're going to leave this at full chamfer. We're going to just go ahead and snug these down. And this doesn't take much. There's 2 of them. Just a little bit of a tweak just to hold it in place. Okay, something I've been wanting to chamfer, and one of the reasons I bought this tool was because of this little piece of 3/16 steel that I bent to lift tires. And I'll put the video link at the end if you're interested in that. But that's one of the reasons I bought this, because it has a sharp edge here. And I was like, I need to buy that chamfer tool. I can sand it off. Sure, there's a million ways to do this, but I thought this is going to be fun. This is going to be something I want to use for other projects. And it really dresses up the steel and makes a nice chamfer along the edge and makes it look nice. So let's try it out on this. So this is a little tool I used to slide underneath my big tires, like on that JK right there. And then I just push down with my hand right here, and this lifts up the tire basically, and I can get it back on the hub. So, and get the lug nuts lined up just by rotating it side to side. I won't go into all the details, but if you're interested in that, the video link will be at the end of this video. All right, so let's just clamp this down here and see if we can get this chamfered. Let's turn it up to high. Well, that's nice. This isn't going to be a sharp edge on my hand anymore. Obviously, I could have done that with a flap disc or a grinder wheel and would have been done much faster. But this is just an example of some things that you can do with this little... This isn't a tool I'm going to use all the time, but there's a few applications that I've looked back in the past that I could have used it, and I'm looking forward to times I can get to use it in the future. Okay, and on this piece of 3/16 here, you know, this is like 1/3 cut there. You can see how deep it cut. Not super deep. This is about 2/3 cut over here. Nice and smooth. And it's close to half. It's close to halfway down. And this, of course, is full cut, full depth. And look at that edge there. That is just so cool. I just love the way that looks. That's awesome. Okay, let's see what these little cutters with the slots in them do. Okay, there's the old one. Now these beveled ones, I don't know what else to call that. I guess that's a bevel. Same thing. They have a skinny side and a bigger side for the screw. So we'll just put the skinny side down, drop the screw in. Okay. Well, that is definitely a rounded edge. You can kind of see it there better, what it's doing. But it's definitely nice and round and smooth. There's no sharp edges at all. I might like that better. It didn't cut quite as deep, and that's with full cut, you know, full depth of cut. So, but it's still kind of a nice chamfered edge there, nice and round. It doesn't look as sharp and as defined, but it feels a lot more comfortable. Okay, what I didn't show you was the extra parts that it came with. So it looks like it comes with 4 roller bearings. There's even a nut for the roller bearings right there, an extra nut in case you lose one or strip one, I don't know, or whatever. There's a bunch of little screws and even some of these little hex screws like that. Okay, just found this little case, this old camera case. It all fits in there pretty easy, it's kind of nice. I kind of over oiled it last couple times I've used it, so we'll just get some of that off. And I'm just keeping it in this bag just in case it does leak a little oil and doesn't get all over everything else. That'll fit in there. We'll put the oldest blades in here. On this end, these are used right here. Okay. Tools, parts, all fits in there. Sweet.